This is the Anti-Suit Entrepreneur Podcast. Here's Chris Lopez and Jason Wells.
It's almost New Year's Eve, and you know what that means. It means a lot of people are out there making New Year's resolutions. Now, would you be surprised if I told you that Jason and I never make New Year's resolutions? Here's the thing. Resolutions sound really good on paper, but from our perspective and watching people over the years and watching who actually gets results and who doesn't, resolutions are more about having a feel-good thing or making a person feel good rather than actually getting results. Now, don't get me wrong, Jason and I, around this time of year, we do make some adjustments. We set some goals, we make some adjustments for, the different things we're working on. But we actually usually do that about 2 or 3 times throughout the year. Kind of just depends on our schedule and what we have going on. And, we don't always do it right around New Year's Eve. The last time we did it was right around Thanksgiving, so about 6 weeks ago, and that's when we made a lot of our adjustments and set some new goals. And rather than focusing on New Year's resolutions, we've found the most success in our own businesses and ventures over the years, and also mentoring other people, when people focus on the little things, like those little things they do each day. And so we call those things little things or money-making activities, because those little things add up to you actually achieving your goals and living life on your terms eventually. And Jason, I got a question for you. What's the number one thing, the number one little thing that makes you successful when it comes to living life on your terms?
Well, before I tell you, I want to say that I think that most successful people would agree with me on this. And this is success in business, in school, writing a book like we did. That's the hardest part about writing a book, is getting it done. Anything you do. I believe the number one thing, it's not the only thing, but you're holding my feet to the fire here, you're asking me the number one thing, I would say it's doing what you need to do when you don't feel like it. In other words, obviously, if you're doing something that you hate every single day, that's probably something you're not going to be successful with, because you got to be doing something you like. But we all have those days, even with stuff we like, where we're just like, I just don't feel like it. I don't know, maybe you ate too much sugar the day before. Maybe you didn't get a lot of sleep that day. Maybe it's just been an unusually stressful day. And when you get to what you need to be done, and oftentimes people that are in like entrepreneurship or business, when they're starting something new, they often have other responsibilities that they need to take care of. And oftentimes it's first before they get to their responsibilities on entrepreneurship. Because most entrepreneurs, they're starting their businesses on the side, and oftentimes it's after work or in the midst of being with family, maybe taking care of kids, whatever. There are those days where you're just tired or you just don't have the motivation, and you just have to power through it. And that would be the number one thing for me, because if I think back to like law school, and anyone that knows anyone's been in law school, it's a grind. It sucks. You wouldn't wish it, you'd experience in your worst enemy. The difference between the successful people aren't the smart ones. It's the people that grind through it when you don't feel like it. If I think about anything we've done in business, Chris, it's that way. If I think of my workouts and, when I've been in the best shape ever, it was always because that previous year I was working out when I didn't feel it. I mean, it's just, I could go down the list, and I bet you, anyone listening to this, something that you've accomplished, you probably had that mentality when you accomplished that thing. So for me, if you were to, again, hold my feet to the fire, That's what I would say, is just doing what you need to do when you don't feel like it.
And I don't necessarily have like a number one thing. I've kind of shifted over the years. I think it kind of depends on where I'm at as, this year or right now at this project, or at this point in my life, I got to focus on this. Then it evolves to this. But I will say one of the top things, and this is for a lot of people out there who are trying to start a business and live life on their own terms, is to spend less freaking time on Facebook, social media, YouTube, all that other stuff. Take that time and put it towards your business. Take that time and learn a money-making skill. And I say this because, number one, I've been there before. So I'm not preaching from the mountaintop. I've been through my phases of doing it. I'm like, oh man, I'm wasting too much time on here. I don't need to check Facebook 6 times a day. But the main reason I'm bringing this up is because, I've mentored tons of people over the years. Know a lot of other people that are just out there working on projects. And of course, Facebook is a great connector, so we're friends on Facebook. And as I either have people report to me what they're doing, or hold them accountable, or catch up with some people, they tell me, oh, I've just been too busy for this, or I couldn't get this done. And what I'll do is I'll sometimes go to their Facebook timeline, and you can see how often they're posting stuff, liking stuff, commenting stuff, talking about the newest YouTube video or whatever things floating around Facebook. And I'll sit there and I'm like, wow, well, this person certainly has time for every, half an hour to make a comment on a Facebook post, or to post a picture for Throwback Thursday or whatever. And I'm like, but they don't have time for working on their business, or learning this skill, or learning advertising, or learning how to copyright, or learning how to write a blog. I'm like, give me a break. And I'm not saying, never go on Facebook, never do things and socialize, but you need to keep those things in balance. Because I spend my time on Facebook, I spend my time catching up with my friends, but when it's time to work, I put the blinders on and I get to work. And I make the priority of getting my little things done and getting my projects done over wasting time on Facebook. And it's hard, it's very easy to get sucked into Facebook and YouTube and all the different websites out there. They're designed that way on purpose. They know how the human mind is wired, and they want to suck you in. Because the more time you spend on their website, the better it is for them, the more money they make from their advertisers, and so on, which is great for them, but that doesn't help you move forward in your business. So you have to track yourself and hold yourself accountable for that. And actually, an idea that I jotted down before we record this radio show, years ago, I had used a software, and I can't think of the name of it, but this was 5 or 6 years ago, that I installed on my computer, and it actually tracked the amount of time I spent on various websites and applications, whether it's an application on my Mac, and I could, at the end of the day, get a breakdown of, I spent this much time on here, I spent this much time on here, and it wasn't fun, because I would say, holy crap, I spent that much time reading the news. I spent that much time goofing around on Facebook. And I was like, okay, but you know what? I did that for, after a week or two of that, it got my act in gear. And so there's all types of programs for your computer, apps for that. So if that's something you want to look into, hop on Google and do it. Depending if you're using mostly your iPhone or Windows or Mac computer, there's different programs. But that's a really worthwhile program to incorporate or to use if you're having trouble, or you kind of need some accountability on how much time you're spending on non-money making activities. Because it's easy to sit down to start working on a project, or start working on a blog entry, and also, I'm going to go check my email, or I'm going to go check Facebook, and then 40 minutes later, you've got nothing done. Now you got to go out the door and go run an errand, and now you got nothing done to move your business forward. So that'd be my main tip right now for most people who want to live life on their terms, is to stop wasting time on all those various websites and applications out there. Facebook will be there later. the newest app or the newest game on your iPhone, that'll be there later tonight when you want to play it. Trust me. So get in that habit.
Chris, you said something about putting the blinders on. I know what you mean, but what do you mean by that? Because I think that's a very important attitude that people need to take when they're doing anything that they're serious about. What do you mean by putting the blinders on? Well, my analogy for that is most people listening to this probably have gone to some sort of serious school, whether it be trade school, college, or maybe even a graduate degree. I understand some people like to sit and listen to music in the background and all that, but when do you get better studying done? When you're in a room, when everyone in your family or friends are around, or when you go in a quiet room and you're focused? I mean, I would say most people, it's when you're focused. And the people that say, oh, I can do it when other people are around, my argument would be you're really not focusing and, quote, putting the blinders on like Chris is talking about. This may sound like common sense, but it amazes me how many people don't set aside, they don't understand the concept of I need to set aside this hour or 2 hours a day to work on my project, where you have a quiet room, doing the things that Chris suggested, such as putting things on do not disturb, turning off their phone, closing their email. And the problem nowadays, technology, it's good and bad. Like my latest Mac operating system for Apple, literally everything integrates. So my phone, I can text on my computer, the same thing I can text on my phone. I can accept phone calls on my computer just like I can my phone. So you literally have to get good at, okay, how do I, operate my computer in such a way that I can actually be not disturbed? Because you can literally have notifications popping up on your screen when even all your applications are closed. And I'm digressing here, but this is very relevant to what Chris is saying. Like, if you really want to put focused time, and this goes back to what I said, doing things that you don't necessarily want to do. Well, what's the worst way when you finally sit down and suck it up and just do what you need to do? What's the worst way to pull you out of that mindset? Especially on a day when you don't feel like doing something. Oh, forget it. Today's just not happening. I'm getting this phone call, or I'm doing this, or something's going on out, in the living room that with the family that it's just another way of pulling you away from what needs to be done. And so that's why I wanted to ask you, Chris, about putting on the blinders, because that wasn't scripted. I just heard you say it, and I thought to myself, I wonder if people even know what that means.
Well, I'm glad you pulled that out of what I talked about, because actually now that I'm thinking about it, that would be my number one thing. When I put on the blinders, that's what has allowed me to have the most success over the years. So that would actually be my number one thing for what's made me successful versus a lot of other people out there who want to do what you and I do, where we can work and live pretty much anywhere as long as we have a decent internet connection and electricity. But most people don't pull that off. So putting on the blinders would be definitely my number one thing. And another thing that popped in my mind, actually more for your point about doing things we don't feel like doing it, Jason. Hey, I have those days as well, you know. Of course I do. And one of the things I do when I'm in that mode, or that, you know, that kind of that funk, or I don't want to do it, I'll sit out, or I'll go out in my living room or my backyard, and I'll go out and do 20 push-ups and 20 jumping jacks. And I know burpees are kind of like the real popular thing right now. Go do 20 burpees or go do 10 burpees. Do something that kind of clears your mind and gets the blood flowing. And doing that will actually help you do better at putting the blinders on like I'm talking about, and actually help you sit down and do those things that you necessarily don't want to do. There's an amazing thing that happens in the body when you get the blood moving, get the blood flowing, kind of warming up. I don't know the exact science behind it, but I've read different articles, different studies on it, and it's kind of one of my little things I do. I keep in my back pocket to help me be more productive throughout the day. And again, a lot of times that's counterintuitive because, like, well, I'm trying to do mental work. What does 20 push-ups have to do with that? Again, I don't know the details. I just know it works. So, and Jason, you found the same thing, right?
Well, I was just going to say, we keep talking about putting an hour or two, but you and I have had spells, periods of time where we've devoted like 2 weeks of intensive, like 8 hours of work a day on a particular project. And we definitely, when you're putting the blinders on for hours and days, you and I get kind of rummy or out of it, or kind of like, ugh, like I can't do this anymore. And sometimes we would take a walk, just literally walking around the block would make a difference. Or if it was getting close to time when you and I normally go to the gym, we would go to the gym. And it's amazing when you come back how you feel. And even now, sometimes if I'm working on something, if I'm getting to the point where I'm not feeling real productive anymore, I'll go and do something else, maybe outside. So like I like to build things. I've always got some sort of little construction project or something I'm working on. I'll go do that for a couple hours, and I'm still being productive. I'm still doing things that need to get done, but I'm breaking up my day by doing that. Now, I know a lot of you don't have that luxury. If you're working a full-time job and you're coming home and you're trying to work on whatever it is you're working on to have your little side thing, you can't always do that. But there's other things you can do. Like maybe at 6 o'clock, you can do an hour worth of solid work. You can take a break for an hour, spend some time with the family, go back at it for another hour. I know a lot of people in school do that. They study at night. They might study for an hour. They spend time with their family, and they go back at it. Like there are things that you can do where if you just organize your day and you say, at this time period, I have to do this because if I'm getting on the phone and you're like a sales type business, you have to call people at a certain time, maybe knock out an hour or two on that, then take a break and then spend time with your family and then come back later at night, maybe in the non-calling type times where you can do anything. It's a matter of putting in the time and do those administrative things where time isn't an issue. But breaking up your day is one way to do that. It doesn't even have to be physical exercise. That's preferable. Sometimes it can be just getting your brain off something else. And again, these are all things that you can incorporate to stay productive, because in the end of the day, putting the blinders on for Chris is getting something done. For me, it's doing something when you don't feel like doing it. These are all things that you can do so you accomplish those things. But you have to want it. And the only reason why we do all these other things so we can be focused is because we really want it. And so there's not a whole lot we can do for people that really think they want it, but they really don't. You're not going to put the blinders on. You're not even going to make the effort, and you're not going to carve out the time, and you're not going to do it when you don't feel like it. Can't do much for you in that area. But if you're somebody that really wants it and you're struggling with some of these things, I can tell you that these things may sound simplistic, but they're really good to just keep you on task.
And kind of looping back around to, not wasting so much time on social media or Facebook, and doing something that, takes a break from your work. I can tell you what, rather than if you're struggling or you're waiting to put the blinders on, you're doing something you necessarily don't want to do, rather than wasting 5 minutes on Facebook, don't do that. I see so many people now, it's that automatic reach for their cell phone. Oh, let me go browse Facebook for 5 minutes. Well, you know what? Go do what Jason talks about. Go for a walk around the block instead, and leave your cell phone at home. Go play with your kids. Go play tug of war with your dog, or go play fetch with him in the backyard. Because, yeah, you're taking a 5-minute or 10-minute break. But when you're doing something like that, physical, playing, walking, you're letting your mind kind of relax and kind of go in that I don't want to say like a sleep mode, but you're not having it engage in anything, per se. Where Facebook is engaging your brain, and it's getting you filled up with, oh, this person posted this is going on, oh gosh, this happened in the news, or this person posted this about the politics and blah blah blah, and she or he is so wrong, and it gets your brain worked up. And then when you try to come back to sit down to crank out an hour of work, it's going to be so much harder because your brain's already gone in 20 different directions. And it's been a couple of years, I forget the specifics of the study, but there's been numerous ones where they've done studies on people's attention span and work productivity when they've had different interruptions or stimulations. Even something as simple as a text message. Someone texts you, hey, do you want to see a movie this Friday? Or someone texts you, blah, 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 blah. You read it, respond, oh, okay, yeah. And then you come back down to focus on what you're doing. It takes, I've read anywhere from like 8 to 15 minutes for your mind to get back to where it was focused on what you're working on. Now, if you think of 15 minutes without going an interruption, that's getting kind of close to an eternity nowadays with how plugged in technology we are between text messaging and Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff. So keep that in mind, and I would really encourage you to make one of the little things you do when you need a break or you're working on something, rather than reaching for your phone or logging into your email for a break or to kill 10 minutes, go do something else. Go outside and work on your garden. Go outside and work on a project. Go play with your kid. Go do some push-ups or burpees. Just go do something else to kind of let your mind relax a little bit. Hey, I got another one for you, Jason. We were talking / complaining about this the other couple weeks ago as we were doing a new marketing campaign, trying to find a couple people to do some work with us, and that's people keeping their appointment that they set up with other people, not just us, but keeping their appointments in general, right?
Yeah, but this is a problem in everything. I mean, doctors and dentists now are like charging people, missed appointment fees if they cancel their appointment within a certain time or don't show up. The not showing up is the problem. I don't know what it is with people these days, and then I'm going into bitch mode a little bit, but people now just have no respect for other people's schedules. Like, I don't know if it's just because I grew up in a law firm environment and appointments were, sacred. Like, you didn't, not only are you on time, but to think of canceling at the last minute unless there was an absolute emergency, or worse yet, no showing, like, that is just so far beyond my understanding. Like, and I can tell you right now, that is successful people don't do that garbage. I could care less. Like, yeah, it wastes my time, and it's a little irritating when people do it to me. But I just kind of chuckled to myself and said, that person will never be successful in anything. They'll always struggle. Always.
What comes to my mind when you talk about that is, because one of the things we do in the various projects is we'll do a free consultation or talk with people, because we're big believers in helping people, building that relationship. And when I was new starting out, I didn't have hundreds of dollars to spend on consultants and all this stuff. So we try to keep that in mind and really help out people who want to go out there and have success. And I've had people where they schedule an appointment. I call them, and then no answer. So I send them an email saying, "Hey, you scheduled for 4:30 on this day. Like you didn't answer. What happened?" And I've had responses, "Oh, sorry, I forgot," or "Oh, sorry, something came up. Can we talk? I really want to get your help, Rowan. Can we talk next week?" And I do exactly what Jason says. I shake my head. I'm like, "You're freaking kidding me." And I'll write back and say, "You know what? You blew it. Let this be a lesson to you. I was here at the time you requested trying to do a nice thing for you. You didn't show up, and now you take my time casually. You want my help next week? That's not the way things work. So whoever you talk to next, or whatever project you work on next, let this be a lesson for you." And I've gotten some nasty emails back from people like that, and probably some of the people listening to this podcast think, "Oh, gosh, Chris is a jerk. Jason is a jerk." But you know what? That's what people need to hear, because people need that wake-up call. They need that smack across the head with a 2x4 to shake them out of their, "Oh, the world revolves around me, and I've got this lackadaisical attitude." That's not going to get you ahead in life, especially when you've got, someone who's already been successful in a field or successful in something you're doing, and you want to get some guidance or help from them. It's just plain idiotic when you don't keep your appointments. So I'm going to stop there before I go on a 10-minute rant.
Well, but I'll tell you what's amazing to me, even more amazing. It's amazing to me that when you call them out on it, their natural response is like, "Well, you're a jerk." They still don't get it. And I'll just sum it up to this way. I'll bring up my situation in the past, but not to make it, "Well, you're just rooted in your law background." I'll give you another example that'll drive it home. But if we showed up to a hearing with a judge late, or worse yet, no-showed, what do you think would happen? Like, the judge is going to be all over your butt. And it's not because, well, some of them it's ego. But the reason why that's not acceptable is when you're an attorney, people's lives are in your hands, and you just don't throw things away. And how would you like it if you were scheduled for surgery in the hospital and your doctor didn't show up? It's not what professionals do. And why do you think, if the general consensus in most economies is that lawyers and doctors make a lot of money? Why do you think that is? Because they're professional people. And a lot of times the support staff around them make pretty good money too, not as well as them, but it's because they're also professionals in the support structure around those people. And you go, "Well, you guys aren't saving people's lives." Maybe not, but I can tell you, you have to have that attitude when you're doing whatever it is you're doing. I'd say with anything in life, and particularly when you want something from somebody, when you want to get their knowledge. I would have never thought when I was starting out in entrepreneurship, when I made an appointment with somebody, that particularly when it was, "Oh, you're going to give me 15 minutes of your time for free," I would have never thought to blow that off. I remember at times there was somebody I really wanted to talk to. I'd set 2 alarms to make sure I didn't miss it, But people that's the problem nowadays. And I'm not to get on my soapbox, but I'm telling you, if you're one of those people that have done this a time or two, if you're calling us to jerk, or you're getting mad, or you think we're being unreasonable, that anger isn't directed at us. It's actually directed at yourself. If you're mad at what we're saying, it's because you're mad at yourself. You just don't see that yet. And you just need to face that this behavior needs to change, because you can do everything else we suggest. And if you don't get this one down, you're not going to be successful, because people expect professional, successful people to be prompt, to be on time, to show up. Like, that's a minimum. I mean, that's just the way the world works. And if you think it's too rigid or you don't like it, then I hate to tell you, that's just, you're not going to be successful. And you were talking to anti-suit entrepreneur. We're like, not that we never wear a suit. We do it when it's appropriate, but we don't do it if we have to. We don't like to. We're definitely nonconformists in a lot of things, but there are some things you just have to conform to. And that's a number one for me. And when you got our lifestyle, Chris, I'm sorry. It might be a little inconvenient sometimes to keep a schedule, but hey, you have our lifestyle, or we can have pretty much work anywhere. We have electricity and internet connection. I'm sorry, like, I'll deal with being on time and showing up for appointments. I don't know about you, but that's not that big of a deal.
Oh, no, I mean, not a big deal whatsoever. And the other thing, I'm talking about appointments and scheduling, if you really want to live life on your terms, one of the reasons we're able to do, various things, whether it's, go travel somewhere for 3 weeks, or, build a shed in the backyard, or remodel the house, or, just do a lot of these things that the typical, 50-hour-a-week working person can't do. It's actually because we run a tight schedule. Say, okay, well, I'm going to work from, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. on this project. And then, a lot of times that's my schedule. If I'm working on, if I'm got a non-business thing I'm working on, I'm, from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., 8 a.m. to 11 a.m., I'm going to do a couple of these projects. Cell phone's off, Skype is off, Facebook is off, blinds are on. Boom. And then from 11 to 4 o'clock, I'll get a quick workout in, go do this other stuff I need to do, or go run my errands. Then from 5 to 7, I've got these 2 appointments I got to do with people. I've got these other few things I got to do to make some follow-up phone calls. And so we actually can live life on our terms and have that flexibility and have that freedom, because we keep appointments and we run a tight schedule. So Jason, before we wrap up this radio show, any final little things you want to share with our listeners?
Well, if you want to make your New Year's resolutions, fine. Maybe they could be some of the things that we talked about. But let's not make it a New Year's resolution. Let's just do it for the rest of your life. Like, just do it. That's the problem with New Year's resolutions, is that touchy-feely, oh, I feel good because I'm going to do this year, and this year's going to be different. No, this year's not going to be different, and the year after that's not going to be different if you don't make a decision today to do it and to continue to do it. I mean, it's just true with everything. If you want to shed a few pounds, get in better shape, if you want to be successful in something, you just got to put in the daily work. There's, if you just think of professional sports, the difference between, like, if you think, let's just say professional basketball. In the NBA, that's probably 500 of the best basketball players in the world. But the difference between the elite is, it's major in what you see on the court, but I would say it's very small little things that those people do on a consistent basis that make them the elite. If you look at the NFL, if you're a football fan, I know we're in playoffs right now. Everyone's that's into football, they've got their mind on that. How many quarterbacks in the NFL are really you consider elite? It's like there's the elite and everyone else. There's really no in between. Like, there's people that are really good, and there's just everyone else, and they're almost so average that the team's questioning whether they need to go a different direction. So it's really it's like the haves and the have-nots. Just like in society, the haves and the have-nots. Well, again, what's the difference? I'd be willing to bet that elite group, those quarterbacks, are doing something consistent that the other ones aren't doing or willing to do. And so it's just true in everything. When you look at everything, It's just the people that are doing the little things are the ones that are getting the success. And those little things are doing them consistently and not making New Year's resolutions at the first of every year that end up getting, they're thrown out the window after a month. Like when you go to the gym in January, when you've been working out at the gym like I have for 20 years, and you always see the influx of people in January, and right around the second week of February, it goes right back to the normal amount of attendance. I mean, that's just representative of what people do when they decide to do something and they don't stick with it.
So I know what we cover today is not the typical New Year's resolutions or even necessarily the, we consider this motivation, but I know this is not the typical feel-good motivation, pump you up. This is the nose of the grindstone, the little details motivation that actually makes or breaks a lot more people than listening to some pump you up, feel good, go out there and kick butt in 2015 stuff. So if a few things we said upset you or rubbed you the wrong way, you know what? Don't get mad at us. Take that and say, okay, why did that upset me? Am I doing this thing? Am I falling short on this? Or is it rubbing the wrong way because what we're saying hits home with you and you don't want to admit it to yourself? Heck, I'm that way. I hear things or I do things. I'm like, I start getting irritated. I'm like, why am I irritated? You know what? It's because this was brought up or this was said or I heard this, and it's because I'm doing this stupid thing or I'm not doing what I need to be doing. That's why I'm angry. All right, change your mindset, change your attitude. What's the little thing I'm going to do to get everything back on track? So we wish you a very happy, productive, and successful 2015. And if you ever have any questions or comments for us, please leave a comment, or if you go to antisuitentrepreneur.com, you can send in an email from there or call into our office and we'll do our best to help you out. So have a happy new year, everyone.